Hi, welcome. I am back with another video. I'm here to talk about my experience yesterday. So I am a maternal health professional. My background is in public health programs, things like that. But I also am a midwife assistant or a birth assistant. So I am starting that process. This is my, I think, fourth birth. Yes, fourth birth. So 6 observations. So I've observed 6 births, but this is my 4th birth as an assistant or assisting a midwife, a home birth midwife. So I'm just here to talk about or recap my experience yesterday. So yesterday I assisted with a birth. I am located in Phoenix, Arizona, and so I got a call around, what was it? I think it was like 1:30 a.m. or something like that. I think it was exactly 1:30 a.m. So yesterday rather, I got a text like in the middle of the day saying, from the midwife saying such and such water has broke. Potentially, I'll keep you updated, blah, blah, blah. So then I said, all right, well, I'm at home. I work from home too. So my 9-to-5 job, I work from home. So I'm like, all right, well, just let me know. I'm going to be at home. And so around 1:30 a.m. Yesterday, as I said, today is, what is today? June? No, not June. July. What is today? July 14th. So yes, yesterday I got a text and saying, okay, I think her water broke. Can you be on your way? Yada yada. So I drove to the client's home. This is a black couple. So black couple, live in Phoenix. This was her fourth pregnancy, but third live birth, as they call them. So this was her 3rd time giving birth. So I was there. Everything went well for the most part. My job as a midwife assistant or the birth assistant is to literally, as the name implies, to assist the midwife. And that includes just charting. So like during labor, just making sure I chart everything that's going on or the most relevant things. So like fetal heart tones and checking the baby's heart tones with a Doppler. It's like an electronic Doppler. And so you kind of like when you go to the doctor to get like a sonogram, but it's just kind of like, instead of the big old machine, it's just like a handheld sort of thing, and you put the wand and you can hear the baby's heartbeat. So to get fetal heart tones and to check those out and record those every few minutes. It depends on your state, depends on your midwife, and depends on the rules and regulations. But basically, every 30 minutes, I was supposed to do that. And then you do maternal vitals. And so vitals being the maternal being mom. So get the mom's pulse, blood pressure, temperature, things of that nature. So that's my job as the assistant, is to get that information, as well as to help the midwife and anything else she needs. So, can you help mom get into this position? I am not a doula, so that is a different thing. So, and I'll probably cover that in another video, but doulas and midwife assistants do totally different roles. But that's a whole nother video, and perhaps I'll do another video on that, because I don't feel like YouTube has much information about birth workers or birth work in general, aside from maybe a doula. But birth work is, there's a whole nother side to like midwifery and birth work, and that people don't know about. So that's a whole nother video. But yeah, so that's my job, is to get maternal vitals, check baby's heart tones, assist the midwife and other tasks and duties, getting them in different positions, maybe drawing up medications. So home birth midwives have a certain set of like medications to help in case the mom bleeds out, so postpartum hemorrhage. So in case of emergencies, there are also like herbal tinctures or herbal like homeopaths used in home births too. So administering those as needed. And just like general cleanup after the births, and a whole other random things. But yeah, so back to this birth. So I got there, it was around 2:15 a.m. and like I said, this is my fourth birth assisting. So got there, everything was, you know, progressing for the most part. Like I said, home birth, yada yada. And so when it came down to the actual birth, you know, what happened during the actual birth? When it was time to push. So when I got there, she was in active labor. And so active, there are different stages of a labor. And so basically active labor is like, all right, your contractions are getting stronger. The baby is, you know, making its way downward, preparing for birth, yada, yada. And so as the mom got closer to pushing, you know, like I said, my job is to check fetal heart tones, things like that. And so I had the Doppler on the mom's, you know, belly. And as a birth worker or as a doula or whatever, I'm not a doula, but like I said, as a midwife assistant, like I said, you're not necessarily the client or the moms or the pregnant ladies or the families. You're not hired by them, you're hired by the midwife. But as an assistant, as the midwife assistant, you get to see a lot. And you know, I was very up close and personal. Like, you know, she was on all fours. Like I had my flashlight, and I'll talk about that later, my like supplies and stuff, but I had my flashlight and I was just, you know, shining it. Her booty was in my face. You know, I'm seeing, you know, the baby's head pop out of the vagina. Like, it's very, you know, very graphic, but you know, I love it. I love birth, so that doesn't faze me. But it's just interesting how, you know, it's a very intimate like moment. So like I said, I was right there, like her butt was in my face, and you know, I was checking the Doppler, and then too, like, whatever makes the mom more comfortable, whatever position makes her the most comfortable, and how you labor or how you give birth is how you give birth, you know. So I was behind her and I was checking the heart tones, and usually heart tones, like I said, I'm still learning, but usually fetal heart tones, or the baby's heart tones, are very fast. They're faster than the adults. So they're gonna be like 120s, 130s. Anything over 160 is concerning, and then anything under 100 is concerning for a baby. Well, for a baby. So, you know, basically we started to hear deceleration. So basically that means, you know, the baby's, let's just say, heart rate was 130s, in the 130s, right? And now as she was pushing, I put the Doppler up to the wand part, up to her, you know, her abdomen area. And that's one thing we'll get to that. But I put it up to her abdomen, and all I hear is dum 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 dum, and I'm like, in my head, because I, you know, as a birth worker or as a midwife assistant, you want to check your face. Like, you know, you got her husband was there, her mom was there, her mother-in-law was there, all in the room, and her husband was there supporting her. So it's like you want to kind of be mindful of how you say things or what you say, or check your face, because, you know, they're concerned, and if you are freaking out and if your face looks like, oh my gosh, that's not reassuring to them. So the baby's heart rate was significantly slower, and I was like, oh shoot, like in my head I was like, shoot. And I heard that, and you know, and I've been trained to like hear what normal, you know, sound like, and I heard that and I was like, okay. And then that's when my midwife, the midwife, I'm gonna say my midwife because that's the midwife I'm assisting, that's when I heard her say, I just saw her face change. Like, her face changed. She was like, all right, baby doesn't like this position, so we're going to go ahead and move you to another position. So, you know, that can help too. Like getting, you know, maneuvering and getting the mom in a position that's conducive to get the baby out. So she was like, all right, baby doesn't like this position. Let's get such and such. Let's get you, you know, down here and in a squatting position, and let's try and give me a big push. So we tried that, you know, and she was like, such and such, the baby doesn't like this, give me another push or we're gonna have to call 911. And she just said it like plain, because in a situation like that, there's no time for patty cake and, sugarcoating. So I was like, okay. And I wasn't nervous or anything the whole time. I wasn't nervous at all, only because I know if you show that, that's gonna come off. That energy is gonna come off, and I didn't want to put that frantic or fearful energy like around me. Not energy in a spooky sense, but you know what I mean. So I was like, all right, so check. And she said, okay, Bianca, keep the Doppler on, and we're just going to continuously listen to see if it goes back up. So I kept it on, still same thing, slow heartbeat. So then she was like, yeah, we're going to call 911. So, and I was like, oh shoot, because that hasn't happened to me before. This is my only my fourth birth. So she called and she told them, 911, everything, and gave them the information. And then she also had to call, I think this is a state rule of ours for home birth midwives, she had to call like a nurse that was on call or something at a local hospital, something like that. I have to, get those details later. But, she did that, and like I said, I was continuously monitoring, had the fetal heart tone, getting fetal heart tones, and then it was like, all right, well, let's try again. And keep in mind, like, the mom is still contracting and pushing, trying to move through that, and then she had her doula there, like, coaching her as well. So so she was like, all right, let's push again. And then I kept the Doppler on, and then I start to hear the tones go back up, so the heart rate started to pick up again. So it's like, all right, we're making progress here. Basically, like 1 or 2 pushes later, baby came out, everything was fine. And everything was fine. Baby came out, the baby cried, which is a good sign. You want to hear crying. And if you don't hear crying right away, sometimes it does take babies a little while to like acclimate, because they were in fluid that whole time. So it takes their lungs a little while to acclimate to air, essentially oxygen. So, but the baby cried right away. Everything was fine. It turned out to be a girl. They wanted it to be a surprise, so it was a girl. And there you go. And so, as an assistant, I make sure, everything's cleaned up. We're cleaning up. We're kind of wiping her down a little bit, checking for blood, checking for bleeding, because, anything where it's, prolonged pushing, or because the baby's heart rate went down, anything like that, we just want to, or in general, you just want to make sure that she doesn't bleed out or postpartum hemorrhage. So we're checking for that. And so after a while, I would say maybe like 2 seconds, the baby was born at 9:05 a.m. So I got there at 2:15 a.m. Baby was born at 9:05 a.m. And that's one thing I have to keep record of in chart 2 is the time of birth. How is my camera dying already? But the time of birth, and so everything turned out great. Everything turned out for the most part. I will say my experience with this as an assistant, I would say this was my first time assisting and hearing baby's heart tones just kind of decrease, and that was kind of like, oh, okay, so it was first time for that. It was my first time. We have to give Pitocin, and so Pitocin is basically a synthetic form of oxytocin, which is naturally occurring in our bodies as women, and that is the hormone responsible for contracting your uterus and things like that. So basically, we also use Pitocin for postpartum bleeding, to prevent bleeding and to get the uterus to contract again, so it won't let out too much blood. So that was my first time giving Pitocin, because we did have to give Pitocin because she was bleeding a little bit more than the midwife wanted. It wasn't, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a midwife, but it was like a pretty hefty amount of blood, but it wasn't to the point where, it was like just gushing blood. But like I said, what do I know? I'm still learning. I'm just an assistant. But we did give Pitocin, and I had to give it to her. So I draw it up and I inject it in her thigh, the top of her thigh. And so that was my first time sticking anyone with any sort of needle. So first time for that. And then it was also my first time listening. I listened to baby's lungs and breathe and respirations with the stethoscope. And I did hear and so that was cool. That was my first time doing that. And kind of heard the, like, you know, babies breathe a little bit more faster or heavier than us. Not heavier, but faster. So I heard that, so that was cool. Yeah, it was a cool experience. We cleaned up, talked to the family, the grandma, other grandma, the kids were all there. So everybody was there. Not necessarily in the birthing room at that moment, but they were there in the home. So it was cool. We cleaned up and we got the placenta out. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience. But my camera is flashing red, so I don't want it to die, but I will come back with another video, probably talking about some stuff that the midwife gave me after, like supplies and stuff like that, I guess, to add to I have my birth bag here with me. So I'll come back on another video and just kind of go through and show those supplies and what she gave me, and then just talk about that. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.